Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down.
Alright, here we are, folks.
Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it up.
Welcome back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that Simon's down in Boulders. Folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa. Friday, May 17th, 2024. It's just 12 days from South Africa's potentially historic elections, national provincial elections, 3 ballots. You'll go into the booth. You'll be handed 1, 2, 3 ballots, and you get to mark your X on all of them. Are you confused? I'm sure a lot of people are. South Africa's elections are just 12 days away, and I still do not have my passport. That's unfortunate. I had hoped to be in South Africa for these momentous events, but ridiculously slow processing from a corrupt bureaucracy here in the United States keeps me from having my passport back in hand. Fingers crossed they'll arrive early next week or maybe even tomorrow in the mail or today, but not going to hold my breath. Welcome back to the program, folks. This is Colonel Chris Wyatt, retired U.S. Army, broadcasting live from central Pennsylvania to the International Space Station and all points in between. Welcome back. Let me say hello to everybody in the chat. It is a lecker Friday. Freitag. Welcome back to the program, and I'll greet everybody here in just a moment. But herzlich willkommen bei uns. Unsere Sendung heute kommt aus nicht Deutschland, sondern aus den Vereinigten Staaten, aus Pennsylvania. Und wir werden kein Lied heute von Barbara hören. Ja, leider. Also der Bodo hat ein ganz neues Lied. Das heißt Barbara. Zweiten Mal. Ja, und was können wir dagegen sagen? Das ist ja interessant und ich habe ja schon gehört und das gefällt mir, aber das erste war ziemlich besser. Ja, bonjour tous, je suis très heureux que vous êtes là avec nous aujourd'hui pour notre transmission du Vienne des États-Unis, de Pennsylvanie. Je suis très heureux que vous êtes là avec nous encore cet vendredi 17 Mai 2024. Herzlich willkommen. Yeah, servus, salve. Welcome to everybody out there, wherever you're coming in from, whether it's Bavaria, it's Ireland, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, or even Japan. Andre Jacobs, wherever you've disappeared to. And Authentic Max from Nepal. We won't forget him either. Welcome back to the program. Let me say hello to everybody in the chat. We'll get to the news. Updates on the George building collapse rescue operations, which have ended today. Myra Page, Val Cooper. Why is YouTube keeps buffering on this end? Not the broadcast, but my studio. So I'm just going to have to give it a break here. All right, so I'll pause it, and then I won't have to look at it freezing every time I turn around. Myra, Val Cooper, Keith Alderson in from Coventry in the United Kingdom, Pierre Orban, Charles Van Onselen, Monray Sieberts, Gavin Comer, and who else have we got here? Allison Johnson, Dylan Combrick is here as always. Gus is back. Good to see you, Gus. Sedgefield is here. Sean Gunter has a question, which I'll answer in just a few moments. Gus, welcome to you. CyberRegs. Hey, CyberRegs. Good to see you. Hester Kotze. Arctic is here. Joe Niemann. Dion says, whoa, Chris Renan. Yeah, good evening to you. Why are you wearing Romanian jersey? Well, scientists, for those who've been with the program since the outset, you will remember that one of my trademarks was wearing rugby jerseys at every broadcast. That's what I did early on. But when I do 3,000 broadcasts, I don't have that many jerseys. So I eased up and stopped wearing them as a regular thing. And I've started wearing them again recently. I wore the Georgia one, I wore the Portuguese rugby jersey, and now I'm wearing the Romanian, all from the 2023 World Cup in France, all of which I got this one in France. I picked this one up in France. So yeah, I'm back to wearing rugby jerseys, not all the time, but some of the time. Who else we got here? So Scientist, Marilyn Brokenshaw. Hello, Mike is in. And I think we've got everyone there. So let's go ahead and answer the question that was posed a few minutes ago. Declan Kelly, I missed Declan. Declan doesn't like the Afrikaans. Sorry about that. I am using an English song, which I have the rights to. That is used for my introduction video. I hope you like that. When an artist gives me access to a song that I like, that's in English or another language, I'll use it. But I don't have the rights. I only have the rights to Giselle's music. And I love her music. Anyway, so the question came from Sean Gunta. Sean asked, there's no H in there, so that's unusual spelling for me, Sean Gunta. He says, please tell us your love for and connection with South Africa. Well, I've told this story 1,000 times, but I'll tell it again for the sake of any new viewers who might be out there. You have 300 rugby jerseys. We'll have to limit your streams to fit the laundry schedule. I don't wash my rugby jerseys. These have never been washed. I don't wash them because they get damaged and ruined. That's why I have so many and I rotate them. So my rugby jerseys have not been in the laundry. And they're not going to the laundry anytime soon. Yep. Anyway, folks, this is a cool jersey though. Look at it. Romania's colors, nicely done. I like this collar too. This is nice and reinforced right here. It's a really good collar. I got a t-shirt underneath it there. So dirty old man. Well, apparently. All right. So the question Sean asked. So Sean, let me answer your question. All I ask of you is that you tell other people about the channel so they can subscribe to it. So that's the only charge for this information. As a young man in school, primary school initially, in the 1970s, we had some good news magazines at the time, U.S. News and World Report, Time, and Newsweek were actually news magazines, not propaganda outlets, which they later became under the control of leftist Democrats. But at the time, they were pretty good. And they covered events. I remember as a little kid, the Yom Kippur War, how that thing was all laid out. They did maps and things, and I was fascinated by maps and graphics and military and operations and things like that. And then after that, they also covered the war's liberation in Southern Africa, in Rhodesia, in Angola, in Southwest Africa, in Mozambique. And I found these to be fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And I read a book written by, I think it was James Stockdale, the former CIA operative, who wrote a book about the U.S. CIA support for the wrong horse. We backed Holden Roberto of the FNLA, the Front for the National Liberation of Angola, and they were routed. And I read the book with fascination. Also, at that time, there were a lot of Soldier Fortune magazine was huge. I used to read that a lot in the library. And I became fascinated with geography, culture, language, and Southern Africa in particular. And so that was where my interest initially started. But in high school, I read a book called The Covenant by James Mitchell. Sometime I'm going to bring it up here and show you my original copy of it. I still have the paperback that I purchased in high school, I think for like $2.99. I think that's what it cost. I could be wrong on that. I think it's in my original version because I bought a second copy at some point. But The Covenant, which is historical fiction by James Mitchell, one of the most famous fiction writers in American 20th century history, who wrote about a host of topics. And he would take real events and historical figures and tie them in with fictional events and fictional characters that he created to weave a story, which was compelling. The Covenant, of course, was named after the Geloftedag, the Day of the Vow, after or before the Battle of Blood River, in which the Trekboers, who stood down 20,000 Zulu, killing as many as 10,000, made a vow to God that they would build a church in his honor, and they did, much later in Pietermaritzburg. I've been to that church, and ironically, that church has a bust of Daniel Lindley. Daniel Lindley was a graduate of Ohio University and an American missionary who lived among the Zulu. And Daniel Lindley is the person whom the building where I used to attend courses was named after. The building that had the Reserve Officer Training Corps courses for the Army and Air Force was in Lindley Hall, right in the center of campus. And we used to rappel off of the building at Lindley Hall. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. What an interesting time. And so Daniel Lindley and I and the Geloftedag have long links that go quite a ways back. So did I answer your question? Now, that's not the complete story. In the 1980s, I began teaching myself. After I learned German in 1984-85 timeframe, I started to become interested in learning Afrikaans. I'd already adopted the Springboks as my national side because the U.S. didn't have a team back in 82 when I was introduced to rugby at university. So I became a Springboks fan. And then in 84-85, I started learning Afrikaans. Can read it. Don't speak it. Ek praat nie Afrikaans nie. Maar ek verstaan. So yeah, that's kind of where that started. When I went back to university after leaving the Army in the 1980s, I studied primarily African history and with a focus on Southern Africa. We had a fantastic lecturer at Ohio University in the history department, Dr. Alan Booth, a former Navy intelligence officer who ran great courses on history in Southern Africa. And he was amazing and inspired me. And so that's kind of where it picked up, and that's where it went. Pleasantly surprised that I managed to change my voting station from London to Northcliffe, as I will be there for voting day. Oh, Joe, excellent. Congratulations, Joe. That's excellent. Hopefully I'll be there too. Northcliffe. Well, I know Northcliffe. All right, so might require an Indian Royal Air Force laundry and just hang them outside. What did Slippery Pickle say? How long did you work at Langley? I've never worked at Langley. I interacted with Langley many, many times in Bosnia, in Saudi Arabia, and elsewhere. I've interacted with the Central Intelligence Agency, but never worked for them. Never really had an interest in working for them. So imagine standing in line with all the mouth breathers to vote. Jeez, Grey Wolf is upset. Sean says, thanks. You're welcome, Sean. Is that an adequate answer? It's the truth. It has that novelty. So we will end this broadcast just before 7 p.m. South Africa, 1 p.m. because I'll be on with Ronaldo for an hour. We'll be covering that events in South Africa as the election comes up. Ronaldo, of course, is on the list for office for the Democratic Alliance. So wishing him good luck, better luck than I had my election, which I lost badly, very much to my chagrin. In fact, it was to the chagrin of all the elected political officials who thought that I was a top 2 candidate and that I would probably win it. I came in 4th out of 5. That was a bit of a shock. All right. So, by the way, thanks to those who've been watching the content. We've got some good views coming up. I mean, not like the heady days used to have 150,000 all the time, but yeah, we do get some good views with the election coverage of late, so appreciate that. Devet Montanz is back. I can see you glow all the way from here. Oh, it's the yellow jersey, Devet. It's the yellow jersey. Late Wednesday, yes. Well, Wednesday, I did the interview with Ernst von Sale, and so I had to postpone to Thursday. He had a council meeting, so I had to postpone to today. It's just the way things go, folks, the way the cookie crumbles. But yeah, I want to thank folks. Do you trust the Southern African history you were taught by that Navy guy? It must be one of those Western propagandists that labeled all African liberation movements terrorists. Donga, your silly, bigoted assumptions about people just really take the cake. They really do take the cake. Yes, well, not rugby. Rugby played a role in it, but it wasn't the reason. It's just funny. Where's that at? I was just rereading that. Hang on a second here. So, contrary to Ndonga's propaganda and false bigoted assumptions, Dr. Alan Booth was an objective historian who presented all sides, but he did also, of course, present the leftist side, which was just nonsense. This book was one of the reading list books from one of my courses, Move Your Shadow. I've had this in my possession since 1988, I believe, or thereabouts, by Joseph Lelyveld, a leftist New York Times writer and winner of the Pulitzer Prize. This book, Move Your Shadow, was incredibly influential in ending the apartheid era. Move Your Shadow was a consequence of Lelyveld, who'd been kicked out of the country for criticizing and attacking the apartheid government on a previous occasion when he worked for the New York Times. Wrote this book from his experiences. And it's almost a pro-terrorist tome, talking about the lies about the ANC, about how wonderful they were, and not really. Talking about the experience of South Africans. It's, on a personal human level, it's a very interesting story. And you can see I still have the book after 40 years, still have it. Joseph Lelyveld just died a few months ago. And so, contrary to Ndonga's fairy tales and fantasies and self-pleasuring lunacy, yeah, your assumption about the world is just really pathetic. That's the problem with the people on the left. They can't deal with facts and the truth. Those of us on the political right objectively view the world. And, of course, we dismiss the lunatics, the socialists, the communists for what they are. They're liberty-sapping thieves and kleptocrats. But, yeah, no, we treat people fairly. I always get a kick out of it. Well, conservatives are up in arms because the gays get married. No, Nope. Most conservatives I know have no problem with civil unions. The hijacking of the religious institution, which is based on faith, known as marriage, is what conservatives have an issue with. But, the leftists always like to run their nonsense. But this was a very, very good book to read, Move Your Shadow, back in the day. I was just rereading through it the other day and reading a few passages of it, started rereading the book. And I remember just how left of center Lelefeld was when he wrote this book. Anyway, but that's, of course, Ndonga doesn't want to hear the truth. He just wants to hear what he wants. By the way, before we get into the news, since we're talking about Ndonga and he's here, thinking back about what he had to say, all the comments he had the other day, it is fascinating because clearly either Ndonga has been drinking the Kool-Aid from the Thabo Mbeki camp of the ANC, or he's getting paid for what he says, because everything he said was a verbatim talking point from what Thabo Mbeki's been saying on the campaign trail, including calling Jacob Zuma counter-revolutionary. This is the garbage that Thabo Mbeki's been spewing for years and has come up with again. So it is interesting. I don't make money off this channel, so I wonder if trolls make money coming on harassing people. But Ndonga's been asking some good questions, so I'll assume that Ndonga is a genuine, true believer in a failed cause. But there were true believers in apartheid, too. They were also wrong. So what else we got here? A little more than yellow than 40 years back. What? I have no idea what it is. Oh, you mean the jersey's a little more yellow. All right, folks, let's get on with it. We got 74 people here. 5 people just left. Ooh, shame. Where'd they go? Shame. Oh, they're back. That's YouTube, the vagaries of YouTube. Jan Fionn's here. And, all right, so let's talk. Declan says, I think even gay people are a bit upset about the new wave. Oh, Declan, they are. And I know several people who are openly gay, and they're not at all happy about it. Most of the people I know that are gay are quite conservative, and they're up in arms about and I warned people who were gay years ago. Before this trans nonsense started, and when I say trans nonsense, I'm not dismissing transgender people or people with gender dysphoria. These are real conditions for a fraction of 1% of the population, and people should be treated with compassion. But most of this is just nonsense. It's posturing, it's attention seeking, and it's life altering, which is where the danger comes. And most gay people, I told them, I said, listen, this was about 2016, 2017, 2018. I said, you're going to be yesterday's fish, yesterday's news. They're going to wrap you up in newspaper and throw you away. He's like, what are you talking about? Jan's membership for 12 months. Thank you for that, Jan. And like, what are you talking about? Well, you wait. The left is pushing transgenderism, and they will be all the talk, and they'll add themselves to LGB. Yep, LGB, which is now LGBTQI, LMNOPXYZ, something like that. Who can keep up with it? All kinds of nonsense. But gay behavior is Western origin. You're funny, Ndonga. And where is your evidence for that? Where do you get that from? Where do you get that from? Boy, I'll tell you what. The crap that people make up. What are your expectations for new military draft? Yes. Not going to happen. Not going to happen, Mike. Not going to be a draft in this country. We can't afford it. We're already spending $900 billion a year for a defense force full of Zems and men dressed as women walking around pretending to be women and getting away with it and demanding respect and punishing soldiers for being confused about the people who have a mental illness. Yeah, no, it's, I don't expect to see that anytime. Yeah, Joe's laughing. Yeah, it is hilarious. Yeah. Yeah, plenty of gay folks in Africa, and it wasn't introduced by Westerners. It was there long before. Anyway, never had gays in pre-colonial Africa. And your evidence of that, Ndonga, what evidence do you have of that? How do you prove that? How do you prove that point? Pre-colonial. Which colonial area are you referring to, Ndonga? Are you referring to the European colonialism, the Arab colonialism, or are you going to go back to the Bantu colonization of Africa? Is that the one you want to talk about, the Nguni-speaking peoples and their rape and pillaging of Africa? I don't know the evidence to support whether it was there or not before that. I don't know that the Khoi, the San, the Pygmies, and the Neolithic people had homosexuality before the Bantu became. A trans-slender. That's good. All right, let's get to the news. No, there is no money for Gavin. In fact, Discovery, the largest insurer in South Africa when it comes to health schemes, they provide 60% of all medical insurance in South Africa for private insurance. They have said that currently the country spends $250 billion a year on healthcare, and NHI would require an additional $200 billion. That money does not exist. Yep. All right, you guys don't have to address Ndonga. He's just here to incite things. So let's get on to the news. And if you choose to engage Ndonga in the chat, that's on you. I may do it occasionally because it's entertaining, but don't be upset. Pay attention to me, not to the man hiding behind the curtain, Ndonga, who for a lawyer says some really outlandish, unfounded, unsubstantiated things. I would expect lawyers to have a higher standard. So African people despise gay behavior. That's why Uganda and Zimbabwe outlaw it. Law is exception, not the norm. That doesn't mean that you don't have gays. Doesn't mean that you don't have gays. And by the way, it's not the only places. It's also illegal and outlawed in Namibia. And Uganda outlawed it because Yoweri Museveni was in trouble politically, and he needed something to latch onto. So he latched onto something, and that's why it passed in Uganda. I was there. See, Ndongo doesn't have the advantage of having been there and been part of history. I was in Uganda when this legislation was introduced, when it was passed, and when it nearly destroyed U.S. relations because Barack Obama was desperate for something to distract from Benghazi and other failures on his part. So he focused on gay politics in Uganda when I worked at the American Embassy and nearly destroyed our relationship. In fact, he froze U.S. military assistance to Uganda as a consequence of their actions. And I was directly involved in this when my employees were arrested and detained illegally by Ugandan authorities. People who provided health care were arrested, and our clinics were ransacked illegally in violation of international norms and the Vienna Conventions. Yeah, I was there. So, Ndonga, the problem with having a conversation with someone that's actually been there, done that, knows what they're talking about, is it really leaves you on the outs. Anyway, I'm glad you went to Yale or Harvard and got your law degree. Congratulations. But actually having participated, affected, and made history really makes a difference. Ken, just ignore. Stop that. Just ignore. All right. All right, George, ladies and gentlemen, I did a video production just before this broadcast about an update from George, and the numbers from George are not encouraging. Well, they are encouraging in some respects. The number of rescues is actually pretty good, but those have passed away. So 81 is the figure that the authorities from the Joint Operations Center and George Municipality have settled on as the actual number of people that were on site when that building collapsed on Victoria Street. So of the 81, 62 were rescued and recovered. 33 of those have deceased. So that's sad. 29 remain alive and or hospitalized. So some are still in hospital. 4 of the deceased have yet to be named. So that's unfortunate. That leaves a question: if 81 were there and 62 were recovered, did the other 19 simply escape the building collapse and never get buried under it? Whatever the case is, that's the numbers coming from the Joint Operations Center and from the George Municipality. And they are encouraging people and asking people not to speculate as to the cause and also what's going on. Fair enough. But of course, the government of South Africa at all levels has proven itself to be dishonest, opaque, a lack of transparency, and also slow to respond. Never mind punishing the miscreants for the misdeeds. I mean, no one's been punished for Travelgate, Oilgate, Nkandla, Vreda, asbestos, Zandile Gumeda, Digital Vibes, Pala Pala. All these criminals walk free in the streets of South Africa. Yep. All right, so the George building collapse. Let's get to that. I just covered it, but let me just give you the news story here. So, yep. Rescue workers in the process of handing over the site to the collapsed building to the Department of Employment and Labor for their investigation. This morning, Western Cape Local Government Environmental Affairs Minister Anton Bredel said rescue workers had cleared the last of the debris from the 5-story building and had not found any more bodies. It is previously thought that 81 people were on the site. However, the number has since been revised to 62. So there you go. So that begs the question, were 20 people being paid to work and weren't present? There's supposed to be 81 people on the site, but only 62 were. That raises a whole host of other questions. Apocalyptic, folks. Apocalyptic. That's what they're saying. That is what they're saying. Yeah. Yep. The apocalyptic conditions in Gaza will worsen without a ceasefire, says South Africa to the International Court of Justice. Well, that's very frightening. I mean, think about it. That's pretty scary stuff when you think about it. But I mean, honestly, I think we've got something else that's probably more accurate here when it comes to apocalyptic. And let me share that with you, folks. Instead of what the ANC is saying, this is what I have to say about apocalyptic. This is the real apocalyptic situation. This story in Business Day, that's what you just saw on the screen. Apocalyptic conditions in Gaza will worsen without the ceasefire. Well, you could change that headline to read from that to the following. Apocalyptic conditions in the Republic of South Africa will continue without unseating the rapacious kleptocracy on May 29th. There you go. There's your apocalyptic future right there. I like how Ndonga is offering evidence or complaining there's no empirical evidence and then offers no empirical evidence. That's funny. You complain that someone else doesn't have the evidence, but you have offered no evidence either. You can't prove a negative. So, Parliament is giving Cyril Ramaphosa unlimited powers. Now, political parties can get as much money as they want, and they no longer have to follow the law. They don't have to report. There's no limitations on donations. Oh, it is open, corrupt season. Buying government is going to take place big time now. National Assembly passed a resolution that allows Ramaphosa to set a limit and threshold, which he hasn't done. So until he makes a proclamation, there is no limit on the 15 million rand per year, and a threshold of 100,000 for reporting no longer applies. So anybody can give dark money to the ANC, and that's exactly what they want. Corruption. They now allow dark money. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, that applies to all political parties. So now all political parties can take money. But I suspect some legitimate political parties will continue to report their donations in excess of 100,000, but not the ANC. So, party funding regulations are swept aside. The opposition parties oppose a new version that differs from the one that was there last week. The draft resolution to this effect was pushed through. Funding limits for political parties are gone. ACDP Chief Whip Steve Swartz said the ACDP objected in principle to the Electoral Matters Amendment Act, which repealed the relevant sections of the Political Party Funding Act, which means that that law has no teeth whatsoever, and now dirty money can find its way back into politics after the ANC was finally brought to heel. But of course, the EFF claims that they don't get any donations over 100,000. Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news: Zulu, daughter of Jacob Zuma, Dudu Zuma Sambudla, needed a Zulu translator when she spoke in the absence of her father. Oh, dear God. How did Dr. Semakula Kiwanakuka determine that? Did he go back in time with with Sherman and Mr. Peabody in the Wayback Machine to travel back to the 19th century to hang out in the kraals and little huts of the Buganda people to see who was knocking boots and who was sticking it in the backside and who wasn't? I mean, how does he determine that? From the writings of whom? Apartheid disadvantaged me, says Dudu Head. Yes, the 41-year-old spoiled child of Jacob Zuma. Yep. She had to address party supporters because her father was a no-show at an election campaign on Monday. I want to apologize as President Zuma could not be here. He had to go somewhere on an urgent basis. I don't know where, but somewhere. As you know, ever since December 16th, he has been at war and fighting with everyone trying to attack him. He's trying to sort out some stuff. Social media users express widespread disappointment as she seldom speaks isiZulu at public events. It's different from her traditionalist father's approach. Some people believe her speaking in English created a gap between her and the Zulu-speaking community of KZN. Residents in Wentworth speak a mixture of isiZulu, English, and Afrikaans. In response to backlash, she said, "People have a problem with my English. Askies. Apartheid disadvantaged me, but this English is taking me to Parliament." Devida says, very strange because Zuma always addresses his supporters in isiZulu and he can't teach his own children to speak Zulu. Why would a Zulu need a translator for Zulu? Is it possible that I, an American from Appalachian, know more Zulu than Dudu Zuma? I mean, at least I know Sawabona. Oh my goodness. Hebana Duduzane and Duduzile have been in this country since forever and they still can't speak their father's language. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's terrible, terrible. Well, the court upholds a ruling that the electric slide minister You can do it. It's electric. Boogie, woogie, woogie. Consenso Ramakopa must provide electricity to schools and hospitals. You cannot load shed. Okay. Sounds like a good plan. Yeah, the Minister of Electricity, the Electric Slide Minister, Ramakopa, has again been told by a court that it is his constitutional duty to shield all public schools, police stations, and hospitals from load shedding after his right to appeal against the ruling last December was denied. The full bench of the Howatang North High Court ruled that the court's December judgment should take all reasonable steps to ensure sufficient supply of electricity to public institutions would stand. Yes, screw residents. Make sure the public buildings are protected. Yes. The Bella Bill has passed, the Basic Education Laws Amendment, which steals parental rights and suppresses minority language. Not to mention sending parents to jail for their truant children. Litigation is expected as critics slam its content and rush to push it through. Yeah, it was a rush. The DA, the Freedom Front Plus, and ACDP have vehemently opposed the bill, and requests to Ramaphosa not to sign the bill in litigation are expected. Well, I guess he hasn't signed it. So it passed on Tuesday, but Ramaphosa has yet to sign it. He's busy signing NHI. Don't vote for the ANC. Don't vote for the IFP. Madiba and Buthelezi are gone. Let them rest in peace. So says the iconic race hustler himself, Julius Malema, out on the campaign trail, getting attention. This report in Times Live. EFF leader Julius Malema has appealed to elderly voters to stop voting for the ANC and the IFP because of their loyalty to Nelson Mandela and Mangosuthu Buthelezi, both of whom have passed from the stage. They should be allowed to rest in peace. The elders, we implore you, don't do what you did in previous elections by saying, we are voting for Mandela, we are voting for Shenge. They're no longer there. Allow them to rest in peace. Ladies and gentlemen, Julius Malema is not all there in the head. Do not vote for the EFF. Do not vote for the EFF. Ndonga is making excuses for Dudu, saying she was born in Mozambique. Her mother is Shangaan from Mozambique. And she was in private school educated. Can't expect her to speak like a typical KwaZulu, born Natal and bred. Well, when I defend Ian Kama for his English schoolboy sounding version of Setswana, nobody defended him. Ian Kama was forced to be raised outside the country because of racist authorities from South Africa who refused to allow his father to return to the country out of fear because they were overseeing what was happening there. So, would you defend Ian Kama, Ndonga? Would you defend Ian Kama? Political parties take in 172 million rand. That's nothing. It's nothing. It's not even $10 million, folks. Not even $10 million. I mean, with the amount of money I spent out of my pocket for my political campaign, that's more than many political parties in South Africa are spending this election. That's crazy. And it wasn't that much money. 172 million in donations at 19 rand per dollar. That's not even $10 million. With less than 2 weeks ago before the elections, the IC has released its declarations report showing which political parties have raked in the most coin, and the DA was the largest. They took in 65 million rand. Yep. The African National Congress got 16.7 million. Yep. And the Economic Freedom Fighters got 2.6 million. IFP declared 20 million. And MK has not disclosed their donations. Interesting. Freedom Front Plus just got in 169,000 rand. Not much money there. 169,000 rand. Ladies and gentlemen, the Freedom Front Plus, not to make fun of them, but the Freedom Front Plus had donations that were 30% of what I spent on my primary campaign. 30%. Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, the richest party. Well, richest as in donations. So this story in the Times Live talks about the same thing, saying the DA's cash flush. Well, I don't know if they're cash flush just because they got a lot of donations. They might have spent it all already. But not far behind them, of course, came in number 2 is Roger Jardine's Change Starts Now that took in 35.8 million, but they're not even in the election. Change Starts Now isn't even running the election. They've withdrawn from the election, but they got 36 million in donations. So let's put things in perspective of how expensive South Africa is compared to the rest of the world. Okay, so these are the rents, all right? Average rents. Now, that takes a very wide spectrum of quality of housing. But average rents, let's take a look at this. So The cheapest province to live is Northwest. According to PayProp's rental index, the average rent in South Africa is $8,598. Western Cape, the highest at $10,000 per month. Northern Cape, $9,400, surprisingly. Gauteng at $8,800, and Northwest at $6,344. Which means, ladies and gentlemen, that the average rent, now that means half or above it, half or below it. It's the average rent, the median. It's the average rent in South Africa, the most expensive area average. Now, a lot of people can pay a lot more than this, is the Western Cape, and that is a total of just $532 a month for rent. $532 a month. Everything's a matter of perspective. If it wasn't for the crime and the kleptocracy of the ANC, South Africa would be a massive destination for expats from Europe, from the United States, and from around the world because of its inexpensive cost of living. $532 a month for rent? Good Lord. I would kill for that kind of rent. So if we look at Northwest, which is the lowest average rent, $6,344. Whoops, that's too much. $6,344. That's going to be about $300 or something like that. $333 for rent. Wow. The average rent for a home in Northwest Province is less. Well, it's just slightly more than my cable bill every month, my internet bill. Yep. So, hey, another brand is leaving South Africa. Rolex, the Swiss watch, is decamping from South Africa. Yet another iconic brand leaving after Shell announces its withdrawal. Luxury watchmaker Rolex has confirmed that it is closing its Johannesburg office and leaving South Africa. The Swiss-based company told News24 that local markets and conjuncture have changed in the country, and this means that Rolex will no longer be in South Africa. Wow, yet another one. Gray's Wolf says 60% of your income to tax. Well, I pay over 50% of mine in direct taxation, and then when I pay the additional taxation for sales tax and consumption tax, it rises up to about the same amount. Eastern Cape is broken, says Rise Mzansi's leader. Yeah, no kidding. Broken and depressing. Having been in Eastern Cape, I can't argue with that. Rise Mzansi leader Songezo Zibi said the political education was needed to change the Eastern Cape people's mindset. Now that I take exception to. Political education, what do you mean by that? That sounds like indoctrination to me. It's a pretty scary thought there. Well, it's confirmed, according to Scorpio, one of the investigative arms of the Daily Maverick, they have confirmed that the unlawful payment is taking place. Secretary to Parliament's Zole George receives an annual salary of 5 million rand. Secretary to Parliament Zole George's package is 92% more than the legal parameters set for the position. George was appointed in line with due process on a 2.6 million rand package in June of 2022. 7 months of heated battles raised that to 4.4 million, and now it's 5 million rand a year. That's illegal. It violates public law, but he's still in office collecting that paycheck. Now, how does that happen? It's South Africa. That's how it happens. The Special Investigative Unit has raided Home Affairs refugee centers across the country. Centers in Marabastad, eThekwini, Musina, Cape Town, and Gaborone were raided in a simultaneous operation in the morning. They're looking for evidence of corruption in the issuing asylum and refugee papers, of which you will find plenty of in South Africa. Not to mention passport fraud, many other things. Hell on earth! As violence escalates in Sudan's Al-Fashar. The UN says it's received only 12% of funds sought for war-racked Sudan as famine is closing in. United Nations Human Rights Chief has expressed horror over the escalating violence in Sudan's North Darfur region as a top humanitarian official described the worsening situation on the ground as hell on earth. Hundreds of thousands of displaced people are sheltering in Al-Fashar without basic supplies amid fears that nearby fighting will turn into an all-out battle for the city. The last stronghold of the Sudanese armed forces in the western Darfur region is Al-Fashar. Well, hell on earth. Meanwhile, Joe Biden and Jens Stoltenberg continue to fuel a proxy war in Ukraine. Joe Biden just gave $61 billion on behalf of a corrupt Congress to Ukraine, and now announced this week $2 billion more in aid to this corrupt kleptocracy in Kiev. So while Joe Biden is distracting Americans with Ukraine and Europeans, South Africa is distracting the world with its spurious, fraudulent claims against Israel at the International Court of Justice. So, 5.5 million people in Sudan at risk of starvation. Black Africans dying at the hands of the RSF and al-Burhan's government army. Starving. Displaced. Where is South Africa's ANC in charges of genocide against the government of Sudan? Where is South Africa? Now, the ICC is different. Sudan's not part of the ICC, but they are part of the ICJ. Where is South Africa's urgent appeal and calls to stop the apocalyptic situation in Sudan? It does not exist. Hypocrite, thy name is ANC. Wow. They don't give a flying flip about black people, the ANC. They don't. Only black caters. Chad's Mehmet Debe is confirmed as the winner of the disputed election. The son of the man who ruled this country for decades. Chad's Constitutional Council has confirmed that Debe is the winner of the May 6th election after dismissing challenges by two losing candidates, cementing a victory that extended his family's decades-long rule. He seized power the day rebels killed his father, Idris Deby, in 2021, declared himself the interim leader. He got 61% of the vote, well ahead of second-place candidate Masra, who filed a complaint, who got just 18.54% of the vote. Well, Chad will continue to be a mess. France. Russia's reinforcements to New Caledonia. Unrest could derail President Macron's efforts to restore French influence in the Indo-Pacific. France is rushing security reinforcements to its overseas territory in New Caledonia. French authorities said Thursday 1,000 police officers were on their way to the territory while the army was being deployed to secure ports and the main airport. Around 1,700 police officers are already present in New Caledonia, where rioters have burned buildings, looted shops, and set up road barricades. The unrest risked derailing French President Emmanuel Macron's efforts to restore France's influence as a global power. France, a global power? I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, the World Health Organization has made some concessions ahead of its ridiculous power grab. An advisory body seeking to be a regulatory agency, the World Health Organization, under the criminal Dr. Tedros, the man who hid cholera and caused the deaths of thousands in Ethiopia twice. Ultimately, the goal of these instruments is not to protect public health, states a letter in opposition from 22 states' attorneys general here in the U.S. The World Health Organization has watered down some provisions of its pandemic agreements ahead of the upcoming World Health Assembly on May 27th. Critics in the U.S., however, say the changes don't do enough to address concerns over the policy. And, of course, they are correct. They are correct. The World Health Organization chief urged countries to finalize the accord by the deadline. Yes, back on May 3rd. He said countries are due to finalize negotiations in the accord on May 10th with a view of adopting it at the annual meeting later this month. And I am here to tell you that I have no desire to be a party to this criminal theft of sovereignty by an advisory body that seeks to be a regulatory agency for every human on the planet. You can shove it. Yep. And here was the press release from the captured, corrupt Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown. Call for 100-plus pantheon of global leaders for urgent agreement on governments to reach ambitious and equitable international deal to prepare for and prevent future pandemics. And what I suggest is we stop listening to the likes of Gordon Brown, the useless former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and Dr. Tedros, the corrupt criminal from the World Health Organization, and start paying attention to science, because these people are just power-hungry leftist ghouls. Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico is in serious condition after another operation. The suspect was charged with attempted murder. Interior Minister Matas Sujas Estok said the suspect charged with attempted premeditated murder and the attack had been politically motivated. He's not a member of any radicalized political group, neither left or right. He's a lone wolf. The director of the hospital where he's being treated said that he was stabilized but remained in very serious condition after a complicated operation that lasted 5 hours. The Prime Minister narrowly escaped death, said President-elect Peter Pellegrini. Wow. Narrowly escaped death. No wonder, shot 5 times at point-blank range. Well, the first supplies to ensure that Hamas is not obliterated and remains in power have been delivered by the United States. First supplies enter Gaza through a pier built by the U.S. military to ensure the continued existence of Hamas as it steals food from and murders children in the streets of Gaza. The first aid delivery to Gaza by sea in 2 months. Pentagon officials said no U.S. troops were entering the territory. Trucks of humanitarian aid began moving ashore in Gaza early Friday through a temporary pier built by the U.S. military. Well, there you go. Ensuring the continued existence of the terrorist state of Hamas. French police have shot and killed a man who set fire to a synagogue in Rouen. Police killed a man who set fire to a synagogue in Rouen in northern France. In a message posted on Twitter, Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin said the man had been neutralized and praised police for their responsiveness and courage. In the continued anti-Semitic attacks against Jews worldwide, this is the latest in what we're seeing. Frederic Talit, the Rouen city prosecutor, told a news conference that firefighters responded to a blaze at the synagogue. Now, when I was in France, in Bordeaux, some scumbag, self-loathing, leftist little hate wanker security guy threatened and harassed me when I sat on a public street outside a synagogue, which I didn't realize was a synagogue at the time. I sat out there to eat my sandwich. It was incredibly hot in the apartment where I was at, just boiling. I was melting. There was no air conditioning, and I was sweating, so I went down on the street to eat my sandwich. He came over and harassed me and chased me away. And he was rude and disrespectful to me. I got up and left and said nothing to him, went down the street and ate my sandwich standing at the corner of the street. And I looked down the street, and while I was gone, he allowed a gentleman with his young son to come. The young son played around the stone where I was sitting, and the kid did that while the man sat down. I came back, and I asked him, I said, why did I have to leave? These people can't leave. And he got really snotty with me and started insulting me as an American. And then in French, I just ripped his ass because he was an asshat of a scumbag. You're going to harass me as someone outside a synagogue? Really? I almost wish I'd been Jewish and would have ripped into him. But yeah, so it was private security, not government. The National Football League disavows one of its best players because he told men to be men and don't be ashamed, and for traditional lifestyles at a college graduation. The league said that Harrison Buchner's views are not those of the NFL as an organization. Of course not, because the NFL is a scumbag, racist organization that perpetuates racial myths about America and treats Americans like children while discrediting our nation. So of course his views don't represent the NFL. NFL said Thursday it disagrees with the views expressed by Kansas City kicker Harrison Butker during a commencement address last week in calling itself steadfast in its commitment to inclusion. Now, inclusion is exclusion of white Americans. It's the exclusion of Christianity unless it's practiced by black players who take a knee during halftime and have a prayer. But when white players do it, they're abused and not protected by the NFL. The likes of Tim Tebow, a man of faith, who was ostracized and mistreated by the NFL and driven out of the league, while black Americans' faith is celebrated by the NFL, a racist organization. Yep. Well, the New York Times runs an article that's total bullshit in an attempt to slander the reputation of Justice Samuel Alito. Justice Alito's house, a Stop the Steal symbol on display. An upside-down flag adopted by Trump supporters contesting the Biden victory flew over Justice's front lawn as the Supreme Court was considering an election case. Now, first off, this is a tempest in a teapot. It is bull crap. It's total nonsense. An upside-down flag is not a symbol of Trump. It's not a symbol of the MAGA movement. An upside-down flag is a naval maritime symbol of a ship in distress. It has been adopted by Americans who find their country is upside down and under threat from fascist totalitarians in Washington, D.C. That flag is not a Trump flag. It has nothing to do with January 6th. The New York Times is fraudulently making a claim and tying it to a justice of the Supreme Court to undermine his credibility because they are scumbag, anti-American, hateful, self-loathing, wanking scumheads. Yep. That's what they are. After the 2020 presidential election, some Trump supporters falsely claimed that Biden had stolen the election. Many of them displayed a startling symbol outside their homes, on their cars and airline posts, an upside-down American flag. That wasn't Trump supporters. That's a maritime symbol, and the New York Times should be ashamed of itself. Well, here's the regulation from the World Health Organization, folks. 64 pages to suppress your liberty and track your movements. Look at this, 64 pages. They define an ill person, an individual suffering from or affected with a physical ailment that may pose a public health risk. Dr. Tedros is affected with a mental illness. It doesn't affect public, so does that count? 2 House panels move forward with contempt resolution against the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. Attorney Generals failed to turn over subpoenaed records of Biden's interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur to 2 House committees, and therefore They voted on it. 18-15 on May 16th. The House Judiciary Committee voted to approve a resolution to hold Garland in contempt for refusing to provide impeachment investigators recordings. Yep, the House Oversight Committee followed hours later with a 24-20 vote to approve that resolution. Merrick Garland is contemptuous of Congress and should be charged and put in prison for his contempt of Congress. Yep. That's what they just did to Peter Navarro, who exerted executive privilege, but apparently he's not allowed to have executive privilege from actual genuine executive privilege protected information for the chief executive of the United States. But Joe Biden can do that to cover up his corruption. The man who shared classified information with a biographer in violation of federal law when he wasn't the originating authority of it to begin with. He had no authority to declassify it. Joe Biden, the corrupt, anti-America president, exerts executive privilege. They put Peter Navarro in federal prison for exerting executive privilege, which was his prerogative because he was not released from that obligation by the President of the United States. This political trial nonsense going on in this country is out of control. Well, this one I thought about whether to tell the story or not because it's funny, but it's not exactly. Ndonga says racism is real in the USA. So fucking what, Ndonga? It's real everywhere. What's your point? Racism is real in South Africa. Have you seen the EFF? Have you heard of the EFF or Black Land First? Racism is real the world over. Stupid people are racist. And that includes black supremacists. But this story I'm going to tell you anyway, it's actually kind of funny. The New York Post and many others reported an artist in New York released a bunch of balloons. Pro-Trump artist releases 100 penis-shaped balloons with the faces of Alvin Bragg and Judge Merchan on them. Controversial Staten Island artist and activist Scott Lobadau released 100 pink penis-shaped balloons featuring the face of Donald Trump. Foes Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg outside the courthouse. The pro-Trump provocateur said he released the art installation, which also features the face of U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith and Manhattan judges Juan Merchan and Arthur Engoron, titled Dicks of Hazard. Show these guys a bunch of useless dicks. Oh my goodness. Oh, come on, show me the pic. Where's the pic? Come on, the pic isn't there. This one here is where it was at. There it is. There's the pic. There's the dick pic. That's classless but funny. Classless but funny. California police have arrested an illegal alien who used a rape van to attack American citizens. Police in California arrested an illegal alien serial rapist who has attacked his victims inside a vehicle described as a rape dungeon on wheels, rescuing a woman before he could sexually assault her. Eduardo Sarabia, a 40-year-old transient from Mexico who is reporting in the U.S. illegally, was arrested after Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies intervened to save a potential victim from a savage rape in a remote area of the San Gabriel Mountains the day after he was allegedly involved in another sexual assault. The alleged rapist's 2015 white Ford Transit van had no windows and was distinguishingly outfitted for rape. The local L.A. Fox News affiliate Fox 11 called the vehicle a rape dungeon on wheels. He was charged with 2 felony counts of forcible rape and forcible oral copulation for the May 13th incident. He's also charged with the rape of another woman on May 12th after driving her to a secluded area in Los Angeles National Forest. Based on the nature of the allegations, detectives believe there may be additional unidentified victims. They're seeking the public's help in identifying such victims. Wow. Rape van. There you go. So more criminal alien invaders. And we may have to have sympathy for these people. No, he's just fleeing something. Oh, Americans commit crimes. So what? If this man wasn't in America, these women would have been assaulted. It's as simple as that. Kate Steinle would be alive. Riley Lakin would be alive. Donga. There's not one South African law that's racist. Apartheid laws are scrapped and prescribed in the Constitution of 1996. Wrong, Ndonga. Wrong. That's simply a factual lie. You call yourself a lawyer? That's comical. Have you ever heard of the Tourism Relief Fund? You familiar with that? Yeah, racist. Anyway, but it was upheld by the North Gauteng High Court as being in accord with the Constitution, overturned by the Constitution or the Supreme Court of Appeal. Yeah. Anyway, that's the news for today, folks. Thanks for being here. Be sure to hit the like button and watch the other content. We did put a video up about George earlier, and a handful of people had a chance to see that. So, Lake and Riley, yes. Yep. A handful of people saw it. So let me go back and see what the chat is back here between folks. You guys, what do you got going on here? So let's go back to about 1220. Donga claims to be 82 years old. Really? Wow. Yeah, ANC bringing hate speech laws at the same time as other countries points to their following global agendas. Exactly. 100%. The EFF and AWB are common if they both want violent, racist, and domestic terrorists. Well, that's a fair point to make, Patrick. Yep. Horrible up-talking fad where women make every sentence sound like a question by raising tone was associated with vapid Hollywood scum. Now women do it globally. Yep. Why does the ANC not make an issue of Stan? Why does the ANC not make an issue of Niger and Mauritania, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Somalia, Mozambique? And don't tell me because they deployed troops there, made an issue of it. They haven't made an issue of it. Or Myanmar. You know, the perfect example for the ANC would have been, quite simply, folks, to have been a friend of the court filing an amicus brief in the case, the groundbreaking, historic case that the Gambia, a tiny little corrupt narco-terrorist state, the Gambia brought against Myanmar in 2019 for genocide against the regime, which is no longer in power. They were overthrown by a corrupt military. Now the country is ruled by a military that's actually oppressing and committing genocide against the Rohingya. But South Africa didn't join that case. They can't say that, well, they were distracted by COVID. There was no COVID in 2019 when the case went forward. They can't say that it's the 2008 financial crisis, because it wasn't. It was 2019. They can't blame Jan van Riebeck, because that has nothing to do with Jan van Riebeck, or Henry Verwoerd, or apartheid. The matter is that the ANC doesn't care about human beings. They care about naked political power, self-enrichment, and self-aggrandizement. That's what they're all about. That's who they are. And there's no denying it. Their actions speak louder than you can imagine. So they don't give a flip about starving, dying Sudanese in Darfur or in Sudan proper. They didn't care about what happened in South Sudan. No, in fact, they cared so little about it. All they did was send a C-130 and the DERCO director's jet to Entebbe in Uganda to evacuate their diplomatic staff. Nothing to help the South Sudanese in that conflict back in 2011. And once again, in Donga, I was on the ground for that. Yep. How many Joe Biden clones have been produced now? Well, let's see. Jens Stoltenberg, Emmanuel Macron, Cyril Ramaphosa, Olaf Scholz, Rishi Sunak, Justin Trudeau. There's a lot of Joe Biden clones out there. The Clone Wars. Yes, Charles, they're probably looking for another handout from Tehran. By the way, so the ANC got 15 million rand in donations in the last quarter of last year, which is when they managed to pay off 102 million debt that they owed to an event organizer that was 3 years old. They tried to welch on paying that debt. And since then, they've gotten 16 million additional rand. That would be 31, almost 32 million rand. But they've managed to spend 102 million rand that we're aware of publicly, plus another 20 million rand that they spent for the birthday celebration. Remember that? So that's 102, 122 million rand. They're handing out food parcels. They're doing advertising. They've got posters all over the place. Yet they're about 70 million rand in the hole from where they were in October. How is the ANC paying for all these things? And you might say, well, they had the money. No, because the sheriff was sent by the court to attach their property. They had less than $5,000 in their checking accounts. They had no money. They had no assets. The corruption is unbelievable with the African National Congress. Now, I unsuccessfully ran for office and must file my final financial report. I have till the 23rd of May. That report runs through the 13th of May, and I'll do a closeout report after doing that one. So I have to report mine as a matter of public record, every donation, of which I received 0. So anyway, actually, I did receive some in kind at the end. Not South Africa, the ICJ, ANC is there. Huh? What? Oh, yeah, okay, got you. Well, yes, I've said that. I've said the ANC. So, conflate the two. They run the country. I wonder how many Joe Biden clones got that one already. Handout Declan says, me watching this on a Friday evening is not a good indicator of the state of my social life. Well, I'm sorry, Declan, if you don't like my content. Or your point is it's a Friday night and you should be out partying. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. John says, because no one's paying them to make a fuss over Sudan. Correct. So weird to hear a woman in India, UK talking like an idiot Valley girl because they want to school in California. True. Arctic tells Declan, can't you multitask? Have a whiskey and listen and a bri? Alter Bridge says, I'd prefer headline Chris Wyatt brings Giselle to Alter Bridge house for a long bearded... Good God. Oh, my goodness. Who are these fools? The World Health Organization. That's who they are. Who is instrumental in the gender woke movement? Let me double check with Ronaldo, make sure we're still on. I don't see anything from Ronaldo. Still on. Still on. To send out, so whether I need to end or not, I've got to go to the clinic here a little bit later on and get some stitches removed. So I just sent Ronaldo a note. You had not downgraded the Palestinian refugees recently. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Charles. What else? I guess for the origin of woke is either China or... I don't know. Woke is started by leftists in the West, in South Africa. No, they're not bending the knee at the NFL, but they have no credibility, so who listens to them? Comments are comical as I block the troll, says Teresa. What else we got here? So, Donga says racism is real in the U.S. And again, yeah, so what? What's your point? There's always stupid people everywhere in the world, including South Africa. So what's your point? Did you block Donga's comments? I see Donga's comments. I see his comments. Donga says, what did he say? Quotes are all about redressing the imbalances in the past. Otherwise, woke folk would get away with creating barriers to entry black folk. Well, again, Ndonga, that's an assumption. It's a false assumption based on no evidence, no empirical evidence that white people would prevent black people from doing anything in South Africa. And quite frankly, it's the opposite. I can give you endless examples of white people who have enriched and empowered and helped black people throughout South Africa in the past 3 decades, in the recent past. Most of the help that aspiring black farmers have gotten in the macadamia nut industry, in dairy farming, and also in crop rotation and crop farming has come from white farmers, white commercial farmers who've helped them, not the state. There's evidence of that. We can point to cases and farmers where that's happened. We can also point to all the white South Africans who tried to take food parcels to poor black families in the early stage of the lockdown, and they were harassed by SAPS and by ANC, and those parcels wound up in the possession of ANC politicians who sold them or ate them themselves. You're just making stuff up. You're just stoking racial hatred for whatever reason. Apparently you hate white people, Donga. I don't know why. You need to get past that. I have nothing to do with whatever harm you perceive ever happened to you. Not a damn thing to do with it. I, however, have been the victim of racial discrimination over and over and over again, including in promotion in the military, when my promotion to captain was delayed because of racist in the Clinton administration lying about the Army's promotion, and then able to delay for 9 months promotion of thousands of officers, costing me a small fortune in cash. That's just one example. There are many other examples of it. It's morally wrong. I've never excluded anybody from anything. In fact, I was recruited to attend historically black college and university. I didn't go there. I went to Ohio University. So, you need to stop making these broad generalizations, and I don't understand where your hatred comes from. White folk would get away with creating barriers. Horsemen are. You have no evidence of that. So if we were to take the example of apartheid, and that's your basis for making that claim, should we make the same claim that given the opportunity, blacks would murder whites for sport, like happened to Pete Retief from Dingane? Should we take the example of Dingane and Shaka as the norm for black people in South Africa? It's ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. Malema was hate speech, so there goes his legal theory. Yep. Every law is tested against the Constitution. That the impugned tourism law was ruled valid speaks for itself. Actually, the tourism law was ruled invalid by the Supreme Court of Appeal. It was overturned, but that was after all the money was gone. So it achieved its effect. It had its racist effect of denying South Africans access to money when they were denied operation by a corrupt government who shut down their operations and forced them into bankruptcy and liquidation in favor of black folks. Yeah. By the way, the people working at those restaurants and those hotels and those tour companies were mostly black. They're the ones that lost their job. No, it was unconstitutional, and it was proven such. And I'm really doubting that you're actually a lawyer. I mean, you don't even know the history of the Tourism Relief Fund lawsuit. I know it better than you. What else we got here? All the ANC money's gone. Yeah, well, no doubt about that. No, Marjorie Taylor Greene, AOC. What happened with the fight and what happened there? Chris, Google and learn. It's online. Check the entry requirements as well. Entry requirements for what? Google, learn. Yeah, that's funny. You're stealing my lines. What else you got here? Best wishes. Well, thank you, Sanchez. Okay. Lucanio, thank you for teaching us to read and write and letting us use your alphabet. It's not our alphabet. Do you see this? I'm not picking on Lucanio, but do you see the historical ignorance? Not my alphabet. It came from Arabs. Well, the basis came from Arabs. It is a Roman alphabet. That's correct. But I'm not Roman. I'm not Italian. And our numbers come from the Arabs. It's not mine. I'm a Viking. We use runes. We used runes. We were as antiquated when it came to writing down our language as the Mayans were, as the Egyptians were with their hieroglyphic. Yeah, no, it's not my alphabet. We adopted the alphabet like the whole world did, except for the Chinese and the Ethiopians and the Iranians. There's a few other examples, but yeah, no, it's yeah. But yes, white Europeans did teach black Africans to read and write. That's Daniel Lindley was one of them. He did that. What else we got here? I'm missing some other stuff here. That is funny, though, Lucania. Thank you for that. You gave me a lighthearted moment there. Exactly. A reference commercial farmers helping small-scale farmers. As an ex-Zimbo, one of the first farmers killed there in 2000 was David Stevens, who was well-known for helping poor black farmers. Yes, and that's why he was targeted. David Stevenson and Livingston were targeted for those reasons, and I've covered this extensively, Cyber Rags. I didn't realize that you're from Zimbabwe. For some reason, that slipped my mind. I covered this extensively when I started broadcasting this channel. I used to cover, Rhodesia Day, and which is, also happens to be Veterans Day here. But I covered a lot of things, and I talked extensively about the murder of commercial farmers and which farms were targeted. Martin Olds, David Stevens, and the others who were all targeted because they had great relations with the opposition and with black Zimbabweans, and that's why they were targeted. And they were targeted not by the people who were in their neighborhoods or their community, but those bussed in from outside by the corrupt Hitler, that scumbag who's long since dead, and Mugabe, to lie about the situation in Zimbabwe. The lie that the whites stole all the fertile land is pure fiction. Most of the land in southeast Zimbabwe was not fertile. It took extensive irrigation and cultivation to make it productive, and then it was all wiped out by the land theft. So just lies and lies and lies and lies. Yep. Thank you for sharing that, Cyber Eggs. I forgot about that. Ken, I ask people not to respond, and they still do. So, English is a truly global language contribution to dozens of languages reflecting its rich history and diverse influences. Exactly. People want diversity. English is diverse. Diversity is English. That's right. English is diverse. It is the most diverse language out there. French, Norman French, Anglo-Saxon, Norse, Swahili. So many languages influenced our language. Celtic languages even. Anyway. All right. Scooby. Oh, David Scobie. Yeah, I used to do that too. That's right. Yeah. Let's play that real quick. Yeah. I forgot about that. Let's do that real quick before we wrap up. Taking the easy way home. I forgot about that, folks. Let's play a couple moments of that. That'll be fun before we leave. I don't need adverts here. Wow. Oh, that's not the one I want. I want the one with the video. That's the one I want right there. Oh, that is it. Okay. We'll be on Ronaldo in just a couple minutes, but we'll leave with this.
Close your eyes, think a while before we call it a day. Turn around, try to smile, smile as you walk away. It ain't easy leaving, don't you know even heroes cry. I don't know the reason, I just know it ain't easy all the time. It's funny how we seem somehow strangers saying goodbye. Guess what we had is over now. Maybe we flew too high. I won't find it easy, and I know you're leaving will trouble me. But I got a feeling that maybe you really hurt more than me. I know it might sound vain, but really it's not that way. It's just that I found my way.
Taking the easy way home. Taking the easy way home.
Alright,
Taking the easy way home.
'cause I'll find another road, another way to go. Find some other song to sing along the line. Going home. Taking
The easy way home.
taking the easy way. I've had my fears, cried my tears, and learned a lot on the way. I've hurt my pride through the years, but now they're all yesterday. So baby, believe me.
David Scobie's living in Scotland now. His son is also a musician. I've tried unsuccessfully to reach out to him and get him to come on the channel. The contact information I have from him was very poor. Anyway, folks, that's going to wrap it up here. You'll be directed to Ronaldo's stream in just a moment here. Come over and join us on Wednesdays with the Colonel for Ronaldo. And let me just fix something here very quickly before I leave. But I want to thank everybody for being here. And again, if you guys don't want to listen to what the heck is going on? Stupid YouTube is playing games. There we go. I had to find it. It took me a second there. All right, good. So you'll be automatically redirected there. We'll see you at Ronaldo's. 87 people currently here. Be sure to hit the like button. Enjoy your Friday. It's a Lekker Freitag. And don't be brought down by haters. If you know who you are in your heart, if you love and trust other people and you treat people fairly, that's all that you need to do for the human experience. God bless and have a lovely one. We'll see you over there on Ronaldo's channel in just a moment. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for being here. Really do appreciate it. And that's going to do it for today. Be sure to check out my video with an update on the George building collapse as the rescue operations come to a close. Tomorrow on Rugby Ascendant, three games on Rugby Ascendant tomorrow. Those three games tomorrow are the first game, the Bulls hosting Benetton, a game that Benetton must win, but the Bulls should win this one as well. Then it's the Lions hosting Glasgow. Good luck, Lions. And then the Stormers on the road against Connacht in a must-win situation for the Stormers, who looked pretty sad for the first 70 minutes last week. Catch you on Rugby Ascendant tomorrow. Cheers, folks.